All right, welcome back to the Cantina Club. We're just gonna roll right in because we don't know how long we're good for tonight. But that's Corellian over there. Wave Corellian. Do the Corellian salute. We all know the secret Corellian handshake. I'm Greedo. Gundark still missing, still held in the camp of the educators.
GKTOs.
Educators. The administrators or whatever. That'd be like a He-Man administrator. Administrator. But tonight we're talking about Clone Wars again. We've decided to discuss each group of episodes that's in an arc instead of doing each episode since they're only 25 minutes long. Um, our previous review was about the Bad Batch group of episodes. Uh, I sort of feel like they misnamed the arc, and this one should have been called the Bad Batch, but that's just my personal feelings. and, so, Curly, why don't you tell us about what we saw and what we're talking about tonight as far as which
Well,
episode?
we're talking about the next four episodes, which is episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 of season 7. The titles are Gone with a Trace. Episode 6 is Deal or No Deal. Episode 7, Dangerous Debt, and episode 8, Together Again. And we're basically looking at the story of Ahsoka following her time when she leaves the Jedi Order and she's on the run, and she ends up running into these sisters, this pair of sisters called the Martez sisters, who basically are mechanics. And they also do, they're, like I said, there's two sisters. There's one that's kind of, the good sister, and there's the bad sister. And the bad sister is always getting them into some bad deals and shady deals and stuff to try and make money on the side. Anyway,
She's
and then
kind of a wannabe petty criminal.
right, and then her sister, the quote unquote the good one, she's kind of naive to the whole thing, and just trusts her sister to make the right decisions when clearly her trust is misplaced. Um, and that's basically what this turns into, just a they first form this bond between with Ahsoka, the good sister does, and wants her to stick around and kind of become part of the team, as it were. Ahsoka's reluctant to do that because she's kind of a loner at this point and doesn't really want to be attached to anything. And the, I got to tell you, okay, this has been a very poor story arc, I think, for me. This whole thing, especially following on the heels of the Bad Batch, which was
Right.
outstanding. This was really a downturn in quality as far as just interest level. If I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, obviously the art is the same, the writing is still good. It's just the story just wasn't there. Just wasn't much to it, and I think, and I kind of made this point to Greedo last week when we were talking about this, that I think it comes off even worse, just from the standpoint that I know we're down to the last
Yeah.
few episodes, the last handful of episodes ever, and they're wasting four of them on this story.
Right. Yeah.
That's what kind of concerns me. So I know now, of course, we still have the final four episodes coming up next, and we'll get into what that's going to be about here before we get done. But back to this storyline, I will say on the positive side that I feel like the episodes did get stronger. I don't know,
Hmm.
if you agree with that or not,
Sure,
Greedo,
I do. Yeah.
but I feel like the first one was by far the weakest. That was bad. I remember talking to Greedo. I think the day after that premiered, and like that was literally one of the worst Clone Wars episodes I've ever seen. Just from the standpoint of it being uninteresting, you know just didn't hold my interest at all. But I will give it credit. It did advance and get a little bit better each episode, I thought, until we obviously ended the episode 8 with the tie-in, the lead-in rather, to what the final four episodes is going to be about, which is of course ultimately the Mandalorian, the Siege of Mandalore, which actually happens basically from, if I get my timeline right, it happens right at the exact same time as Revenge of the Sith starts, the
Oh,
film.
wow.
That's
Okay.
basically, so that's the proper end of the Clone Wars, because it does happen like right before the Siege of Man, or the right before the Revenge of the Sith movie starts.
I did want to ask, just so I'm clear, was this since the Bad Batch ended
Hmm.
with Echo going off with the Bad Batch characters? Has it been 4 episodes to get to
Yes.
Darth Maul's cameo?
Yeah.
Wow, 4 episodes. I thought it for sure it was three.
No, it was 4. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll summarize and then go and then how I feel about this and then go into a little more detail maybe. But in summary, for me, this felt more like Rebels.
Hmm.
It felt a
That's a
lot
good
like Rebels
comparison. That's a good
because
comparison.
I never once believed in the stakes for anyone
Hmm.
involved. It was kind of the equivalent of 4 episodes of a Hanna-Barbera character trying to run on a banana peel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it
No, you're
felt
right.
like for me.
You're
It
absolutely
was
right.
filler, and the battles. There was lots of action in the last 2 episodes or one or whatever, but they kept ending up back in the same cell. They
I
kept
was just
ending
about
up,
to say that.
yeah,
It's like you
they,
said, it's like the banana peel thing. It's like
yeah, it was
we escaped
crazy.
and then we got caught and put back, and we escaped and we get
and
caught and
and
we
this
put back. It's
Pike
like
organization had nothing. There's this high level criminal organization, nothing better to do than to mess with these three girls or
these three
whatever,
girls.
and mess around with them and like we're going to torture you, and the torture did no good. But they kept just going back. Okay, we're going to go back to Plan A again. They've
Yeah.
escaped. They've caused trouble. We're just going to go back to Plan A again. And then when Ahsoka finally proposed the clever plan of let them go and I'll stay as your hostage or whatever, um, there was absolutely no reason in that deal for for letting them go alone. The
Yeah.
Pikes could have easily sent some of their foot soldiers with them to make sure. They just let the guy thought I got no other choice. I might as well go along with this plan. I mean, really dumb criminals who had
No,
they
exactly.
were cross-eyed. They couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. They didn't know their own planet.
No,
And,
exactly.
yeah, and it was just a boring place. The Pikes were boring. That's what they are. The Pikes, right? Um, I loved some of the like the cells looked cool, and the lighting and the atmosphere and the setting of the town and the cells and things looked
Yeah, and I
cool.
mean that's
But
the thing about Clone Wars. Regardless of story
I,
quality,
yeah.
the art is amazing. It looks fantastic.
But that's my problem is that this felt like filler. Also, it was a girl's story shoehorned into a boy's show in a way, which
Hmm.
I don't have a problem with. Really, that's fine.
No, not
Uh,
at all.
Bad Batch was very much a boys thing.
Right. It
Growing
was
up boys
very much a
wanted to have
guy
but
testosterone laden
were
show or episodes.
15 years old apart. That was what
Right.
that was like. And this was very much changing gears, and it felt like Ahsoka. Why was she involved with these folks? Why did she stick around? Just because she was kind of needed, but she has so much going on, and she was concerned about droids being misused, and
Hmm.
that's what hooked her in. And so she was lecturing the older sister about, don't give these droids away when they're not might be used improperly. I mean, come on, really? That's what's going to take up her time right now.
Right.
And then the endless debates about are you good, are you bad, can we trust you? We can't trust anyone. It was so childish. It
Hmm.
reminded me of the kind of rebels debates that they would have, and the action had no stakes. Nobody ever got hurt.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, these girls were
Exactly.
just running around the planet doing whatever, and,
Yeah.
and when there was supposed to be a threat there, um, it was kind of cool seeing Darth Maul at the end. But I feel like he's taken a step down as far as his minions. If these Pikes are them, Hondo and his pirates were better. As incompetent as they were better minions. And also, Mandalore, the Death Watch, those
Hmm.
were great minions. They were wearing like the Sith emblems and stuff on their armor, red and black and everything. I
Hmm.
mean, that's huge. And the I don't know, the criminals just seemed more competent in the old Clone Wars during that arc. It
Yeah.
seemed like it was people got killed. You used intimidation and force and
Well, that's the
murder.
thing about, well, yeah, well, that's one
Seemed-
of the things that attracted me to Clone Wars right away is because, back in, the first several seasons, as soon as you'd get attached to a character, they kill them,
yeah.
and they made no bones about, don't get attached to people, certain characters because they're going to take them out. And yeah, you're right. That seemed missing for sure in this last story arc.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it was just like you said. It was just the Rebels comparison is very fair, because that's the one problem with the Rebels is like all this action and all this crazy stuff is going on, but they never felt like there were ever really any stakes because you knew none of them were ever going to get hurt.
Not until they had told us the stakes had
Right.
arrived at the end. When they decided to finally put
Right. To
stakes in
make
there,
the
then
stakes
it
matter. Yeah.
redefined the show. Those are the best episodes.
Exactly.
But this was, like you said, it just felt out of place, and I'm not
Mhm.
sure. I'd love to know why these episodes happened. Were they planned way in advance, and were they supposed to be part of a 20-something episode season, and they just went ahead and executed them? Um, And I'm gonna say this stuff, even though you may not agree with it. It might be wrong of me to say, but I've always felt Star Wars is a galaxy far, far away. And I know. Anyway, all I'm trying to say is these sisters were blatantly like New Jersey girls, shall we
Oh
say,
yeah,
or
absolutely.
and they were Hispanic and everything. And there's been a big push for Hispanic representation in media and everything. And that's fine. That's totally
Yeah,
fine.
absolutely.
Uh, um, but it took me. Star Wars just doesn't. I've never seen it as a place for that, and I'm sure people could prove me wrong and show every part of Star Wars has had representation things in it, but they named them Martez or something.
Hmm.
Blatantly Hispanic. I mean, Newt Gunray isn't.
Right.
You know what I mean? General.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody. Obi-Wan Kenobi. He wasn't Obi-Wan Gonzalez or Obi-Wan
Yeah.
McGinnis. You know what I mean? Like
Obi-Wan
he
McGinnis.
didn't have a blatant Irish name or Scottish name or
Right.
anything. Uh, so I don't know. That stuff, I don't know what they were going for there, except the obvious.
Hmm.
And just for me, it wasn't really for me. If they had been really compelling characters in it, I would have been down. But they were really boring, and they were so slow to progress.
Yeah.
They just held on, and they were really dumb. I mean, they kept making dumb decisions. It was like Keystone Cops. Like
Hmm.
anyone can smuggle this spice. They continue to make Han Solo look like a doofus by
No, they
showing
really do. Yeah.
person can do what he did, and
Yeah.
can pilot a ship that you've never piloted before. I mean, the whole thing was just it was supposed to be funny, I guess, and
I
it's not right.
guess I don't know what they were going for but you're right. There were a couple of scenes that was just they were too over the top with the dialogue and the acting dumbfounded. It's just like that only goes so far. That had to have been played for comedy,
Yeah.
because to be to just blatantly be having this conversation with these quote unquote serious smugglers that are going to kill you, be like, wait, what, huh? Oh yeah, sure, okay, what,
I would
I
have
felt
liked
like.
to have seen a lot more of Ahsoka using her Jedi powers on the sly. I
Mhm.
would have liked to see the challenge for her not to reveal herself, but get them out of the situations. And they did a little of that, but it was too little,
Yeah.
too late.
Yeah.
Also, I enjoyed the idea that these characters, because we forgot to mention this, the beginning of these episodes, the first two or three, is set in the underground of Coruscant,
Right, the underworld.
which
Hmm.
underworld, which to me was very disappointing because it looked like every other place on Coruscant. It just looked like another level. The people acted to me the same as people on other levels that we've
Hmm.
seen. We've seen gangsters and lowlifes and thugs and stuff in on the top level of Coruscant. So anyway, that stuff was left undeveloped in my opinion. But so these characters from the underworld, I would have liked to have seen more of that conflict of how they felt about law and order and the Jedi and all that. And that was
Hmm.
very slow to develop. And when it did, it didn't really seem to have the punch that it should have had.
No,
Um,
they only I think really kind of looked at that from a personal angle, because they killed their parents, or not purposefully, but they what they did, their actions resulted in the death of their parents, and then their reaction to it was, oh well,
yeah,
basically.
and
And
nobody ever checked on them. They were left because they were part of the underground society that nobody cares about. They were left on their own. The Jedi
mhm,
forgot about them, and we see that theme in a lot of things, and
right.
it's very compelling for people to look at the results of their actions
Hmm.
because she was involved in that. That could have been the whole story from the beginning. We didn't need all the endless setup and two
Hmm.
episodes spent before that.
Yeah.
I really, Ahsoka's the character I'm invested in there, and I think back to how people didn't like Ahsoka at first, a lot of people, and she grew on them. And I think, well, that's the case with these characters too.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
nothing really wrong with them that over time can't be fixed,
Right.
but we don't have time.
But we don't have the time. That's the problem. We don't have
Uh,
infinite seasons left.
and with this moments we were all looking forward to was the ones where like Anakin's sensing Ahsoka's presence and what is he going
Hmm.
to do in that situation. But even that situation really had no stakes. It was just a goofy gag of them getting in the wrong lane of traffic,
Hmm.
and the officer saying, "Should I write them a ticket?" I mean,
Yeah.
come on,
Yeah. Pretty much.
that's not even really anything to worry about.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have seen more reaction from Ahsoka and Anakin. They really didn't punch anything home as
Mhm.
far as any kind of drama, really.
Yeah,
So,
no, I agree.
but anyway, there was enjoyable things about it. It was enjoyable to watch. It's Clone Wars. I more or less I was just waiting through it to get to what happens next.
Yeah,
Trying to keep an open mind.
yeah,
So
absolutely. So, and to get to what comes next is obviously, like we said, the Siege of Mandalore, because the episode ends with, the end of episode 7 and then into episode 8 as well, the final two episodes of this story arc, we find that they're being watched by some Mandalorians, and we don't know who it is. And then finally at the end,
Forgot
it's
about
revealed
that.
that it's Bo-Katan, and she, brings convinces Ahsoka to come along with her to help in this fight, and Ahsoka's struggling with that because she's afraid it's going to pull her back into the Jedi Order, which is where she doesn't want to be right now, and she's afraid of what's going to happen if she gets picked up by the Jedi again. So, but that's kind of where they left off. So it's definitely should be interesting going into the Siege of Mandalore to wrap up Clone Wars once and for all with a final 4-episode arc.
And again, unfortunately, that felt really random. And it could have been set up so much earlier and had some more interest there to drive it in anticipation. But remind me, Bo-Katan, is that Sabine's sister, or is that another person like from Death Watch, or
She's from Death Watch.
not
She's
Sabine? I mean, Countess Satine. Is that her? Was that her name?
Satine, yeah, yeah. She's a sister of Satine, the
Okay.
one who's dead now. But the one who Obi-Wan had a love interest with, and actually was one of my favorite characters on the Clone Wars from
Yeah.
our earlier seasons.
Is
But yeah,
Bo-Katan the one that ends up with the dark saber in Rebels, or have you even seen that?
yeah. I know I've seen all of Rebels now.
Okay.
Yeah. I've gone back and finished it all. But yeah. She's the one that she ends up giving. Um, what's her face? Rin uh, gives her the dark saber at the end there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to. I knew it was one of those characters. I was just.
Hmm.
I was trying to keep straight exactly who it was, but
Right.
um, yeah. So we're set up for something cool now. I just hope the execution improves because the dramatic moments in these episodes were kind of just laying there for me, and even Maul's reappearance wasn't particularly exciting or
Hmm.
played with a lot of panache. I remember some of the really big cinematic moments from early Clone Wars,
Hmm.
where they shot it like film. Where they and it had more impact. Things had more impact in it. Some of these dramatic moments seemed kind of rushed
Hmm.
and not to have a whole lot of forethought in them. Um, it is what it is,
Yeah.
right?
No, you're right. You're
So
absolutely right.
I'm happy to have it, but I was hoping for a little more impact where I'd want to go
Yeah.
back and watch the episodes again.
Sure. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think you made the best comparison with it. It felt very much more like watching a story arc in Rebels, and to be
Mhm.
honest, with not only Rebels but with a little bit of Resistance thrown in,
Yeah, it did. I didn't want to go that far, but
with
you're right.
with the real slapstick, stupid stuff.
Right.
Like we're supposed to, But if
How am
I'm
I supposed
watching.
to be a spy?
Exactly, and that's what I felt like we were getting. I'm supposed to be a smuggler, it's like just
Right.
insert smuggler. Um, but yeah, I thought that was really poorly executed and just written in such a way that it to me it was beneath the standards of Clone Wars. Ultimately, is what it boils down to. I just felt the story just wasn't deserving of Clone Wars title. If you put this story in Resistance or in Rebels, I probably wouldn't have even batted an eye at it because it's what
Yeah.
I would have expected. But when it comes to Clone Wars, I just expect better.
Yeah. It made me wonder, like, if there's something wrong with the air down in the underground that people breathe down there that makes them stupid. It's entirely
Exactly.
possible. The pollution or something. But But like I said, I have nothing against these characters. Nothing. It just overall, the fact that they seem to go nowhere, and that sister relationship just kind of sat there. It didn't. It had no moments that really defined it. It's just the same thing over and over again. And it's like, we got it. It's very simple to
Hmm.
grasp. I got it in the first episode. I don't. It's like they just kept covering the same ground over and over again.
Yeah.
So by the time they got to the actual story, which is how they feel about the Jedi and
Hmm.
um, why they are the way they are and everything. It was a little late in the day, for me.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree. I agree.
but we're here and we're going to continue with Clone
Yeah,
Wars.
I mean, I think it's
I
going to get better from here. I really think they're going to go out on a high note. I expect nothing less, and I think we'll get there, honestly, because this is a storyline that, if you know anything about the history of the Clone Wars, this is a storyline that was planned out several years ago. That they were going to proceed with before it was canceled, and it was one of the biggest disappointments for Clone Wars fans like myself that we didn't get to see it, and now we get to see it. So the anticipation is there. Hopefully that doesn't raise the expectations too high that they're not met. But I really am not worried about it. I think they'll come through on this.
The tie-in with Mandalorians, the Mandalorian and the Mandalorian history, and
Right.
how that could inform the Mandalorian show and the world building that goes into that show is something that will be very intriguing for a lot of people and new fans who may have tuned in for Baby Yoda, and may now be giving the Clone Wars a chance, because they still have Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And they want to see, they maybe got hooked a little bit on who are these Mandalorians and why are they like this, and so. But yeah, I'm looking forward. I hope we get some Obi-Wan. I hope we get some of the other characters.
I think we'll get all of that in this. I really think this is going to be one of those stories where everything gets thrown in. We're going to get all the main Jedi. We're going to get we got Darth Maul already. We're going to have Bo-Katan. We're going to have Ahsoka back. We're going to have the Mandalorians fighting, Death Watch, the whole bit. I think it's going to be a big crescendo for the finish here.
All right. Well, cool. Well, I look forward to it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it at least one more time. What have we got to go? 4 more episodes?
4 more episodes. Yep. 12 episodes total, and we're at episode. The next episode will be episode 9.
I wonder. Let's speculate for a second.
Sure.
Have you heard anything about the download numbers or the viewing numbers for this?
I really haven't. I haven't really been paying attention.
I mean, other things have been in the news, obviously, that have crowded everything else out.
Yeah.
But I haven't been keeping up with any entertainment news, mostly because a lot of the entertainment's put on hold. But I can imagine with people at home, it depends on how Disney Plus is doing, since a lot of people may have, temporarily canceled their subscription because they binge watched Mandalorian and they didn't, they watched everything they wanted to. I would think with kids at home right now out of school, Disney Plus would be an awesome thing to have.
Yeah.
But I would be interested to know what they might be thinking. If there's anything there that might cause Clone Wars to get resurrected, or if Filoni and others are just going to say, look, it's over. There's no more story here.
Right.
And we need to do something different, maybe with the same characters. We could do that. But I just wonder what's next, and if this will go over really well, or if it reminds me of, you remember Serenity, Firefly and Serenity, Joss Whedon?
Yeah.
I mean, at San Diego Comic-Con, when they were talking about the movie Serenity, the sequel to the series Firefly, which was prematurely canceled, there seemed to be huge groundswell of support, and huge numbers of people so excited. And the movie basically tanked at the box office. It really didn't do well. So it's impossible for me to know really what. Everybody seems to love Clone Wars, but does that translate into everybody tuning in for this? I'd be real interested to know. Maybe we can discuss that when this is over. We can find some numbers or something. Because if there's an audience there, there's a chance we might get more. It's going to be up to the people involved.
I think so. I think the only way they can do it, though, is, of course, and this wouldn't be strange to the Clone Wars universe, because for those of you who know a lot about it, the Clone Wars haven't been told in chronological order. Right. I mean, loose chronological orders, but they'll get 2 or 3 seasons in, and then they go and tell stories that took place way back. So it's not all just a linear chronological progression. So they could do that if they wanted to come up with more episodes. They could tell some stories that we didn't see of battles that took place, in the middle of the Clone Wars. But obviously the timeline we're getting to now ties us directly into the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, and that's basically the end of the Clone Wars.
Right, and we've also got Ahsoka reappearing as an older character in The Mandalorian, which is going to grab all the interest. I don't know if there's going to be continued interest to see young Ahsoka running around when you've got that to explore. You know what I mean?
Right. And
maybe in the future,
live action
maybe in the future. Maybe when she becomes a huge live action character as well.
Sure.
Maybe in the future they'll go back and revisit the the animated character. I was going to say something else. I'm trying to remember what it was, but my thing is with the Clone Wars, I at this point conclude the story, and that's great. I'm more interested in what happens to the Jedi Order after it's decimated. Because we've seen so much of the Jedi and how they did things with the movies, in the prequel movies, and with the Clone Wars cartoon. Still, my most interesting moments for the Jedi has been Dooku training apprentices and has been Anakin training an apprentice, and how they do things in their relationships and how they view the Force.
Hmm.
And it still has barely been touched upon, in my opinion. To me, the prequels of the Jedi of the prequels were a huge disappointment in that regard. I
Hmm.
really expected to see relationships between them, and whereas they were more emphasized as like Zen warriors with no emotional attachment, so it was
Right.
hard to be
Yeah.
attached to them individually, except for how a cool lightsaber they had or something. What
Right.
move they had.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Good point.
I want to see the Jedi that are struggling with the Force and the discipline and trying to resurrect the Order and reinterpret the rules
Hmm.
when those constraints are gone and when they have not been raised from a kid, they haven't been taken from their parents, and more of what happened in the after the Return of the Jedi or Kanan and Ezra, that type of thing. One of my favorite episodes of Rebels was when Kanan trained. Oh, what was her name? Sabine? No,
Sabine. Ren
Sabine with the
Sabine.
dark saber.
Sabine Wren. Yeah. Hmm.
And they kind of pitted Ezra and her against each other as far as
Right.
being apprentices of Ezra. I mean of
Hmm.
Kanan. But I thought that was still one of the best things I've ever seen for a teacher in the Force and specifically with lightsaber fighting and
Hmm.
saber fighting, instructing someone else, because it balanced everything we know. It was spiritual and also material.
Right.
Um, and instead of just being one or the other, and that's the kind of stuff I really want to see. And I also feel like the dark side training
Hmm.
is completely undefined after 9 movies.
We
After
really
9
haven't gotten
movies,
it. Yeah.
countless things. Yeah, the
I
closest we
mean,
come is Dooku and Sidious. And
right.
occasionally, Dooku had a series in Clone Wars where he trained some apprentice, where they showed him training some apprentices and what happens when you gain enough power where you become a
You get a
threat.
little bit of
Take
that. Yeah, a
over,
little bit of
to
it.
kill. But they've really addressed it more in fan films and things like that. And to
And
me,
expanded universe. There's some
expanded.
like I told you, I'm reading the Darth Bane trilogy right now, and it goes really in depth into that. Actually, it goes
I wish they
very
would
in
do
depth
that.
into the dark side training.
Almost to the point where we had a series focused on dark side characters would be really interesting because
Oh,
they
I think that would
actually
be
don't
amazing.
have to be 100% evil all the time.
No.
They need to have a discipline and a philosophy that's defined that they follow.
Hmm.
And that's what I want to see is what is their viewpoint, because in the sequel trilogy they're just a murder cult.
Hmm.
In a lot of these things they seem to kill this person and your training's complete, kill that person, your training's complete, so
Hmm.
it's just about killing people. you
Right.
know I love the moments in Revenge of the Sith when Anakin says the Sith follow their passions. I mean, you get little inklings of what, and when Sidious says, or Palpatine says, my master showed me all the Force, including the secrets of the dark side. It's just intriguing. I want to know
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
what goes on with this stuff.
Hmm.
So if
Yeah,
we're not going to get Clone Wars anymore, that's fine. But I hope what they do next uh, goes back to that interesting aspect of it for
well,
me.
I'd love to see that because, like I said, I mean, like you said, a Sith main character for a show would be great. A dark side centered series would be great because we will get a little bit more of like what is the training like for Sith, for dark side Jedi. Like I said, with this Darth Bane series I've been reading, you get a lot of that, a ton of it,
I'm gonna
and
have to read
it's
it.
yeah,
Sounds good.
it's really been interesting. I'm about halfway through the third and final book now, and it's very intriguing, well written, but yeah, it goes into a lot of detail about what makes it. And Darth Bane was the character who basically created the rule of two, which is still
Mhm.
present during the current, the Skywalker trilogy, saga, as it were. So he's the one that actually created that rule of two. So it talks about how that came to be and all this kind of stuff. So no,
Yeah,
it's really good. It's been fascinating. But yeah, I would love to see a dark side centric show. I think that would be fantastic.
sure. Yeah, because
Yeah.
there has to be more to it than just getting angry and
Hmm.
using the dark side. There has
Yeah.
to be a reason people do it. There has to be
Right.
a result they're trying to get to,
Hmm.
which Sidious has that, kind of compelling underlying thing of wanting immortality and power and
Hmm.
everything. But I've always wanted more of an explanation of that because in the end, the dark side, as illustrated in the movie, seems really short-sighted. it ruins your teeth. Your eyes turn red, you fall apart, so basically.
Yeah.
And
You age prematurely.
yeah,
And
and
it,
you
it
end up.
actually talks about that in this Darth Bane series. It talks about that is one of the results
Mhm.
of following the dark side, is that it does age you
It
prematurely.
consumes you, basically. I mean, Yoda said that it consumes
Yeah.
you, but there has to be a trade-off. And I understand that once you fall down at a certain point, you no longer in control and you're in the trap. But I want to know what's the bait in the trap besides just power. There has to have been people in the history of the dark side that succeeded. That used it and accomplished their goals
Hmm.
and made it look desirable, or you wouldn't want to do it.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah, exactly.
so so anyway, yeah. But I can understand the lure of power to solve your problems. There's certain characters like the Night Sister, not the Night Sister, but the Dathomir characters. What was Asajj Ventress?
Massage of interest.
She
Yeah.
seemed like someone. I understood her motivation. She
Right.
wanted, she was bitter and angry
And she
and
wanted
wanted
revenge
to,
on Dooku.
yeah,
Yeah.
and she wanted to exert her power over people and in
Hmm.
situations and be a force to be reckoned with. And the dark side was available to her. That's what was shown to her. That's what and what she related to. So that character has always been great. I understood exactly where she's coming from. I still don't know why Dooku went to the dark side. I would love to know that. Why
Hmm.
did he
Yeah,
do
I'd
that?
love to know, why did he
You
leave the
know,
Jedi Order? Yeah.
right? He seemed like a smart dude.
Hmm.
Like, wow, what was behind that? We never
Right.
found out. But
Yeah, exactly. We never got an
Sparks
explanation.
Anakin cut his hands and head off. Do it. It's like he seems shocked by that one. It's like, dude, now would be the time to open your mouth. Oh no, you just
Yeah,
cut your head off.
exactly.
But anyway, so back to Clone Wars. We're looking forward to it. If you
Mhm.
watch this, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you very
Leave us
much.
comments. Why don't we, at some point, we'll talk about our favorite Clone Wars episodes, maybe
Oh, absolutely. I would
as an in
love to
betweener
do that.
before we get to the end of these, leading up to the
Mhm.
end. Let's do that next time.
Sure.
And anybody has any suggestions about ones they want us to put on there, or your favorites or anything, put them down in the comments, and we appreciate it.
I got tons of those. All right.
Anything else you want to say?
Thanks, everybody. No, I'm good. I'm just looking forward to the final 4 episodes.
Me too. All right.
Yeah.
Signing off, Cantina Club. You guys have a good one. Stay safe, healthy, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.